A good Erev Shabbos, everybody, and a very, very happy Chanukah. Begin with Birchas Kohanim, the blessings that the Torah goes ahead and gives over to the Kohen to give over to the people. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe Lemar, Daber al Aaron Rabbanav Lemar. Keisav Aruchu es Bnei Yisrael Amar Lahem. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. V'yoer Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. V'sameh Shemi al b'nei Yisrael v'ani avorachem. I'd like to thank the sponsors for Kiddush this Shabbos. Tomorrow's Kiddush is going to be brisket sandwiches, together with your coleslaw, pickles, and potato salad, and a jelly donut. For those that make it to our outdoor services tomorrow, you'll be treated to a wonderful Kiddush. It's sponsored by the Greenberg family, by Shell and B. It's Shell's birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday to you, Shell. And it's also Shell and B's 67th wedding anniversary this week. So mazel tov for that. It's also sponsored by the Stackler family. It's sponsored by Larry and Debbie Winderman, and sponsored by Fahina Schwartzman. This is in honor of the yahrzeit. It's David's yahrzeit. Fahina's husband, late husband David, his neshama should have an aliyah. He passed away on Hanukkah. And the neshama should indeed be in a lichtika Gan Eden. He should have lights from in the heavenly world and shine down his light upon all of his family and his friends in this world. We are celebrating Hanukkah. Today is the first day of Hanukkah. Today, before candle lighting, before Shabbos candle lighting, we're going to kindle the second night of Hanukkah. What's the story of Hanukkah? It's not a battle against the anti-Semite. The Greeks didn't conquer Israel and begin to wipe out Jews. That's not what happened in the story of Hanukkah. It was Judaism that they targeted. It wasn't the Jew. They weren't looking to persecute and kill and wipe out the Jew. It was the Judaism within the Jew. It was the faith that they challenged. In fact, they allowed many Jewish traditions to continue so long as it was for cultural benefit, not because God instructed you. So they were obsessed with wiping out the Jewish obsession with God. That's what they wanted to destroy. You want to have Shabbat? That's fine. But do it because you're tired and you need a break. Do it because you want to spend time with your family. Don't make Kiddush, because Kiddush means sanctification, that you're sanctifying the day, that you're making it holy. That's what they objected to. The Brit Milah was an outrage. That's what they outlawed. Why? Because you are affecting the human body, and the human body is perfection. They believed in building up the body while destroying the soul. So there came about this new movement within Judaism at that time. It was called Hellenists. And what they wanted to do was Hellenize Judaism, turn Judaism into like a Greek culture. The Greeks forbade the freedom for religious practice. That's what they were going after, the religious aspect of the Jew. Comes along the group, the Maccabees. The Maccabees, it's an acronym for Mi Kamocha Ba'elim Hashem, who is for God. They literally came with a direct opposition to what the Greeks and the Hellenists were presenting. No, we stand for God. And their group was asking the question of their fellow Jews, who is willing to join us to fight to bring God back into Judaism, into the Jewish people, into our lives, into Israel? Who's willing to fight for our freedom to worship the way the Torah instructs us to fight, the way the Torah instructs us to live? You see, the word mitzvah doesn't mean, as we translate so often, good deed. That's midah tova. Mitzvah means a godly good deed. Mitzvah means to connect to the commander, to connect to that who is giving the command. The commandment, the mitzvah, is that we are doing so because God asked us to do so. Let me give you an example. I don't just want my child to give charity because it makes him feel good. I want him to give charity because it makes him feel good and because God wants him to do so. Because this way, if I can connect every good deed with God, if it ever stops feeling good, he'll do it anyway. Because he does so because God asked him to do so, not because it makes us feel good. Judaism is more than a culture. It's more than doing nice things. It's more than making people smile. It's even more than tradition. And that's where Fiddler on the Roof got it a little bit wrong. It's about the Torah and the mitzvot. It's about a relationship with God which governs our relationship with our fellow man. And it is in this commitment to these ideals, this is what has allowed Judaism to survive and to affect and to bring light to the entire world. Today, we face a similar struggle within Jewish practice. There are those who want to limit Judaism to a cultural club. You don't really believe that God cares what I do on the seventh day of the week. But the truth is that deep down in the heart and soul of each and every one of us, we do believe and we do know. Judaism has not miraculously survived all of history only so that we can have a museum. We're not about a museum of culture. It survived because we must be the guarantors of freedom of religion, of freedom of practice, of godliness, of holiness for the entire world. One of the great Bible stories is in this week's portion, the story of Joseph. The brothers don't like Joseph very much, and he clearly knows they don't like him. And one day, as the brothers are off shepherding in Shechem, the city of Shechem, Jacob is concerned, for they have been gone a long time. And he says to Joseph, Leich nar re'eh shalem achecha. Go and see how your brothers are doing. Check up on them. I'm worried about them. They're late. So Joseph doesn't hesitate, not for a second. Joseph's attitude is, Hineni, here I am. I'll do whatever you ask me to do, Dad. It could be a dangerous mission, certainly, uncomfortable beyond a doubt. The brothers don't like him, and they'll outnumber him. But when you're sent on a mission from Jacob, you don't procrastinate. And he arrives in Shechem, and he doesn't find his brothers right away. And he meets a stranger in the street, and the stranger says to him, Ma mevakesh, what do you want here? What are you doing here? You look lost. You look like you're not from here. What brings you to our city? What do you seek here? And Joseph, in this classic biblical line in this week's portion, says, Es achai anechi mevakesh. I seek my brothers. My task, my mission is to bring them back to their father. Those lines, if you think about the exchange between Jacob and Joseph and the stranger, is what the Lubavitcher Rebbe said to his followers in this generation. Go seek your brothers. Find them. In whatever city they may be. They may not like you. They may not be comfortable with you, at least not at first. They may not want you. But go seek them, find them, and draw them closer to their Father in heaven, because their Father is concerned about them. And so the Rebbe's emissaries, they show up on streets of cities all throughout the world, in streets of Agora Hills and Westlake Village and Thousand Oaks and Oak Park and Calabasas. And the person in the street says, what are you doing here? Where did you come from? You guys look funny. You don't belong here. You walk on the streets in Shabbos in 50 layers with these strange coats and hats. Even if it's 100 degrees out there, you're still walking with this black coat. You go around with this lulav and esrog thing. You blow shofar in the parks. You do strange things. Judaism is a culture. Judaism is not, what are you guys doing here? Why'd they take you out from behind the wall of the museum to bring them to our cities? And this is what goes on in every city throughout the world. And the answer is very simply from this week's portion. Es achai anechi mevakesh. We're here to look for our brothers. We're here to look for our sisters, because we want to journey together on this path that connects us to our Father in heaven, back to our heritage, back to our roots, back to our real traditions. And so this story of Chanukah really is the mission statement of Chabad throughout the world, and what the Rebbe has said to his Hasidim and to his followers, including all of you, that you have this responsibility to reconnect Judaism to what it has always meant to be, a connection to God, a connection to holiness, a connection to spirituality. A Chanukah story for you. There was a private in the United States Army, Private Winiger, and he was part of the team that was sent in to clean up at the end of World War II. And in one of his missions, when one of the townlets that he is, he sees in the middle of the night this figure running through the field. And it looked like a young boy. And he sees this boy darting from one hiding place to the next. And he doesn't want to startle him, but at the same time, he wants to see if he can be of help. And he finds this youngster, and he says, I'm from the United States. I mean no harm. Where are you from, and what can I do to help you? The boy's name was David. David. And David was holding this bag. And that's all he had was one bag. And when, in every conversation that he was having with Private Winiger, you see that he's clutching this bag and he won't let go of the bag. And Private Winiger says, can I see what you have? And he opens it and he finds in this bag a menorah. Winiger is Jewish himself. He realizes that this boy is a member of the Jewish people. And the boy explains to him in whatever words he can communicate that he's been hiding, that his father was shot right in front of him, that his mother was dragged away. But he knew the hiding places in the town, and that's what he did. And he would come out at night, and he would find food and go back into hiding during the day. He didn't know the war was over, and so he's continued to hide until Private Winiger found him. And he explains that when he ran from his home, he grabbed the only thing that he can grab that he knew was a tremendously valuable possession. And that was this menorah. And that his parents had told him that this menorah was passed on from one generation to another generation going back 200 years. And so when he ran from the house, he grabbed one thing that he remembered 200 years of passing on from one generation. He grabbed it, and it stayed with him in hiding. Winiger broke down crying. He came face to face with the horrors that his people had gone through. And he tells David, there's no more hiding. There's no more need to hide. You're with me now. I will take care of you. You stay with me. And going through the ranks in the army and then into the State Department, into the United States adoption agencies, he put himself completely into it that David needs to come back to the States with him. And indeed, he adopts David as his own child. And every year, David and Private Winiger light this menorah in the window of their house. And when they light it, David cries. He cries tears of sadness, and he cries tears of joy. The sadness, of course, is because he remembers what it connects him to and what he lost. And the joy is that he is still alive, and that it was this menorah that kept him alive. It kept his parents alive. Winiger had a friend that belonged to a Jewish museum. It was part of a Jewish museum. And they saw this menorah, and they wanted this menorah as part of their exhibit. And they offered Winiger and David $50,000 to purchase this beautiful menorah that was been passed on for 200 years. And they could use the money. But there was no way that David was going to part with his only connection to his parents. And so they turned it down. For 200 years, it was passed on. I'm not about to sell it for any price. One year, there's a knock on the door on Chanukah, as the menorah is lit in the window. And it's an elderly woman. And she says, I see that menorah in the window. Tell me, where did you get it? Why? Asked Winiger, why do you want to know? And she said, because my family had one just like that. It was passed on from one generation to the next for 200 years. And it was then that David came out of his room. And it was just a few seconds later that mother and son were reunited. He never knew what happened to his mother, and that she had survived the concentration camp, and she made it to this country. And she happened to live in the same neighborhood. And when she saw this menorah, she knew that menorah. There was a story that made it to the Reader's Digest about a decade ago. It was a Jewish family in Bucks County in Pennsylvania. And they put a menorah in their window. And in the middle of the night, some anti-Semite broke the front window and destroyed the menorah. The community was outraged. So the next night, 10 homes put up menorahs in their windows. And word spread. The next night, 100 homes in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, put up menorahs in their window. And by the fifth night of Hanukkah, Everyone in that community, Jew and non-Jew alike, put a menorah in that window to make a statement to those of hate. We will not allow hate in our community. Our community is about light. In our century, one evil man tried to destroy our menorah, tried to stamp out the lights of Judaism. Hitler, Yamach Shemai, dreamed of a world that was Yidden reign, free of all Jews, free of all Jewish practice. And our response to him and to all those who follow in his ugliness and his evil is we will not stop until every Jewish home has a menorah in their window, until every Jewish home has a challah on their Shabbos table, until every Jewish home has a Passover Seder, until every Jewish home has a mezuzah. We will continue to climb higher and higher and higher in our spirituality every single year and in our outreach. I'll close with this story. When the holiday of Chanukah arrived in the concentration camp of Bergen-Belsen, a group of Jews decided, we have very little left to our lives, and it's Chanukah. Let's kindle a menorah. At least we'll kindle a menorah. If we lose our lives of it, at least we went down with something. But they had no oil, they had no wicks, and they had no candles, and they had no menorah. What they had, however, was determination. They were determined, we're going to light a menorah this year, Chanukah, in Bergen-Belsen. And so one gave up a shoe, which served as the menorah. Another took threads off their uniform, and that became wick. And another found some black shoe polish, which became their oil. Word spread throughout the camp that in Barrack 17, a menorah would be lit that first night of Chanukah. Many risked their lives to be there. The rabbi that was in that barrack lit the match, and he made the first blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner Chanukah, to kindle the flames of Chanukah. And they all recited Amen. He then recites the second blessing, Sha'asam nisim lavoseinu b'yamim hahem b'zman hazeh, and they all say Amen. He then pauses. He looks around the room. He hesitates some more. And he recites the third blessing, Shehechiyanu v'kimanu v'higiyanu l'zman hazeh, who has kept us alive, who has preserved us, and has enabled us to reach this season. Everyone said Amen. They whispered the singing of the Maoz Tzur. They wished everyone a happy Chanukah, and they went to bed. One individual, a secular Jew in the same barracks who had a passion for debate, waited for everyone to leave. And he approached the Rebbe. I think it was the Bluzhev Rebbe, Rabbi Yisrael Spiro. And he said, Rebbe, I understand the importance of lighting the candles here in Bergen-Belsen. Even though I'm secular, I get it. I understood. I even understood risking our lives to do it because we need the inspiration. We need hope. So I understood why everyone was doing this and why they were risking their lives for it. I even understood why you made the first blessing and why you made the second blessing. I get it. But how, Rebbe, can you say that third blessing? How do you say, Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'higiyanu l'zman hazeh? You're thanking God who has kept us alive? Alive? Have you seen us alive? You're thanking God for keeping us alive? You're thanking God for having preserved us here in Bergen-Belsen? You're thanking God who has enabled us to reach this season with dead bodies all over the place, with our bodies turned into skeletons, with millions all around being butchered and burned and gassed, and you're thankful to God for being here today? The rabbi said, I understand your question. You're 100% right. I made the first blessing, and I made the second blessing. And when I got to the third blessing, I paused because I couldn't bring myself to say it. I turned around and I looked around. And what did I see? I saw a large crowd of Jews with faces of faith, with faces of devotion, with faces of pride, with faces of hope, with faces of mesirat nefesh, of such self-sacrifice. I said to myself, if God has such a nation that at a time like this, when they see before their very eyes heaps of bodies of their fathers, of their brothers, of their sons, and death is all around them, and yet they come to see the lighting of a candle, then I am thanking God for allowing me to live, that I was privileged to be in this room to see such holiness, to see such greatness, to see such precious people. That's why I made the blessing. I made the blessing because of the holiness that existed in this room at that time. I have never and will never experience such a level of holiness as I did at that moment. And that's why I made the blessing. We too, today, we look at the Jewish world and we marvel at our determination, at our commitment to survive and to survive as Jews, as proud Jews who stand up proud and tall. And we're kindling our menorahs, we're kindling our physical menorahs, and we're kindling the spiritual menorah, the flame within the hearts and souls of our Jewish brethren throughout the world. Let's remember this as we light our menorah. Let's remember this as we kindle that neshama within us, that soul within us, that Jewish pride within us. A good Shabbos, everybody, and a very, very happy Chanukah. For those that are not joining us on Sunday for our parade and our concert, you can go on our website, paradeandconcert.com, and you can watch the concert live over the website. You'll be able to see everything. So you'll be able to be home and join us for our Hanukkah concert as well. Happy Hanukkah, everyone, and a good Shabbos.